I want to focus on that last sentence. As POTUS, as President of the United States, he, Donald Trump, is incapable of accomplishing anything. When you made that statement, Mr. Dean, what did you have in mind? You thinking about the 3.2% economic growth rate we had the last quarter? Thinking about the fact we got the lowest unemployment in 50 years? How about the fact the hostages are back from North Korea? Maybe you were thinking about this. When you said the President of the United States was incapable of doing anything, were you thinking about the fact that the embassy is now in Jerusalem? I mean, I think about this one. Every single candidate for as many cycles as I can remember, Republican and Democrat, have promised the American people, you elect me, we're going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. And guess what? They get elected and they come up with a million reasons why they can't do what they said they were going to do. But this president...
Oh man, did you see that? That was just a preview of what we're about to watch. This is exactly why Representative Jim Jordan is one of the most effective members of Congress. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're reacting to a clip that is straight up fire. This is Jim Jordan going head-to-head with Chairman Nadler's star witness, former Nixon White House counsel John Dean, during a House Judiciary Committee hearing, and absolutely dismantling him. Now, the mainstream media will probably call this political theater, but what I'm seeing is someone who came armed with facts and receipts. It's a masterclass in cutting through a scripted narrative. You can tell Chairman Nadler was trying to build a big storyline here, and Jordan just wasn't having any of it. We're going to watch the full exchange, and I'll break down exactly how Jordan does it. All right, let's jump into the full video.
Ohio, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At a memorial event for David Hamburg, Speaker Pelosi and I had a chance to discuss impeachment. Mr. Dean, who wrote that?
I did.
1 month ago, May 11th, 2019, haven't we been too long in not giving Trump a meaningful moniker? Should it be deranged Don, deadbeat Don, demagogue Don? Thoughts, please, comments. Mr. Dean, who wrote that?
I assume that was mine.
It was yours. 19 days ago, May 22nd, 2019, there was this. We are witnessing Trump's massive cover-up of his criminal behavior as POTUS. He's incapable of accomplishing anything. Mr. Dean, you know who wrote that?
I suspect that was me again.
It was you. I want to focus on that last sentence. As POTUS, as President of the United States, he, Donald Trump, is incapable of accomplishing anything. When you made that statement, Mr. Dean, what did you have in mind? You thinking about the 3.2% economic growth rate we had the last quarter? Thinking about the fact we got the lowest unemployment in 50 years? How about the fact the hostages are back from North Korea? Maybe you were thinking about this. When you said the President of the United States was incapable of doing anything, were you thinking about the fact that the embassy is now in Jerusalem? I mean, I think about this one. Every single candidate for as many cycles as I can remember, Republican and Democrat, have promised the American people, you elect me, we're going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. And guess what? They get elected and they come up with a million reasons why they can't do what they said they were going to do. But this president didn't. The embassy is now in Jerusalem. So I'm just wondering, what were you thinking about when you said he's incapable of accomplishing anything?
Mr. Jordan, I think that under the parliamentary rules of the House, I'm refrained from addressing a full answer to your question.
You weren't refrained in your tweets and your comments and the things you wrote.
My tweets are not subject to the parliamentarian.
They are subject to state of mind and the perspective you bring to this hearing, and I think the American people understand. Let me ask you this then. Did you give advice to Lanny Davis or Michael Cohen prior to Mr. Cohen's testimony to Congress?
No.
Well, you said on Aaron Burnett's show the night before Mr. Cohen testified in front of the Oversight Committee that Michael Cohen should, you said you had talked to Lanny Davis and that Michael Cohen should hold his testimony as long as possible from Republicans. You didn't say that to Mr. Davis? You said it on Aaron Burnett's show the night before Mr. Cohen testified.
I didn't say it directly to Mr. Cohen was your question.
No, it wasn't. My question was, did you give advice to Lanny Davis or Michael Cohen prior to Mr. Cohen's testimony to Congress?
Yeah, I have known Lanny Davis for almost a couple decades, and we have talked about it. And I did say, as soon as you turn your testimony over, it will be picked apart.
So you instructed Michael Cohen's lawyer to keep information from Republicans to obstruct the committee work that we were doing in the Oversight Committee just a few months ago? You told that to Michael Cohen's lawyer?
I didn't quite phrase it that way, no.
You know what? They took your advice.
I'm sorry?
They took your advice.
Did they?
Yeah. Mr. Cohen kept his testimony from us for as long as possible. But you know what else Mr. Cohen did that day? Lied. Lied 7 times. And this is what I think concerns so many Americans. This is what concerns, I think, so many Americans about the work that's going on in this Congress, this 116. The first announced witness of the 116th Congress was Michael Cohen, a guy who sits in prison today for lying to Congress. Today, Chairman Nadler brings in front of the Judiciary Committee a guy to talk about obstruction of justice who went to prison in 1974 for obstructing justice.
I did not go to prison.
Okay, you pled guilty to obstruction of justice. I'm glad you got to stay out of prison then, I guess. What bothers me the most, though, is this committee's failure to investigate how the whole Trump-Russia thing started. This is the Judiciary Committee. We're supposed to, how this whole thing began. And I said this a few weeks ago, but I want to remind this committee what the Attorney General of the United States said 8 weeks ago when he testified in front of the Senate. He said 4 important things about the beginnings of the Trump-Russia investigation. He said there was a failure of leadership at the upper echelon of the FBI. His words, not mine. Upper echelon. That's certainly true. Comey, McCabe, Baker, Strzok, Page, they've all been fired, demoted, let go, they're gone. Some of them are under investigation by the Justice Department. He said spying did occur. He said it twice. He said there's a basis for his concern about the spying that took place. And he used 2 terms that, again, I think this committee should find frightening and should be looking into. Unauthorized surveillance and political surveillance. Scary terms. So the good news is, even though this Congress has memorandums of understanding between the key committee chairmen on how they're going to coordinate their attack on the president, even though this Congress' first big witness, first big hearing, Michael Cohen, a guy who sits in prison for lying to Congress, and even though we now have a guy testifying about obstruction of justice who pled guilty to obstruction of justice, we should be looking into the things Bill Barr's looking at. Now, the good news is Mr. Durham's doing that. But this is the part I think that frustrates so many. Mr. Chairman, I would hope the Judiciary Committee and the history this committee has for protecting fundamental liberties would begin to look into those key issues, the whole premise for how this Trump-Russia investigation started in the first place. And I'll finish again with this. Emmett Flood wrote a letter to the Attorney General a few weeks back, made an important point. He said, we would all do well to remember, if they can do it to a president, imagine what they can do to you and me. Imagine what they can do to regular citizens across this great country. That should be what this committee most safeguards and most protects. And instead, we got memorandums of understanding between the chairmen. We got Michael Cohen testifying for 7 hours, getting advice from the witness here on obstructing the committee work and not sharing the information with us in a timely fashion. And now we got John Dean, 45 years ago, pled guilty to obstruction of justice, and now coming in to enlighten the Judiciary Committee on Obstruction of Justice when we could be going right to the start of how this whole thing started. I yield back.
Here's a clean, structured, YouTube-ready rewrite that preserves your tone, energy, and viewpoint without adding new political claims. I kept the commentary style but made it clearer, readable, and punchier. Okay, let's break this down because that was something else right from the jump. Chairman Nadler yields the time, and you can almost see him thinking this is going to go his way. But Jordan doesn't waste a second. He doesn't go for opinions, he doesn't grandstand, he comes in calmly, reading straight from a paper, asterisk, Mr. Dean, who wrote this? He starts with Dean's own words. First, the quote about discussing impeachment with Nancy Pelosi. Dean admits it, asterisk, I did. Asterisk strike 1. His bias is already out in the open. Then Jordan hits him with a tweet, the one where Dean asks his followers for meaningful monikers for the president. Deranged Don, Deadbeat Don, Dimwit Don, and Dean's response? Asterisk, I assume that was mine. He knows exactly what he wrote, and Jordan gets him on the record immediately. This isn't some neutral expert on obstruction. This is someone who clearly dislikes the president and comes in with an agenda. And then Jordan brings out the kill shot. The tweet where Dean says President Trump is incapable of accomplishing anything. This is where Jordan's preparation really shines. He doesn't just let the insult sit there. He pivots and starts listing actual counterpoints. Economic growth, low unemployment, hostages returned from North Korea, the embassy move to Jerusalem. He's not yelling, he's not performing. He's just laying out a list that undercuts Dean's claims. And what does John Dean do? He doesn't defend the tweet. He doesn't challenge the facts. Instead, he gives that smirking answer, asterisk, under parliamentary rules, I have to refrain. It's just, seriously? You can go on TV and tweet to millions about how the president is a dimwit, but you can't answer a direct question from a congressman? That's peak establishment hypocrisy. He can dish it out, but he can't take it. Jordan exposes that perfectly, showing Dean isn't an expert witness, just another partisan voice. But Jordan wasn't done. That was just the appetizer. Then he pivots to Michael Cohen, remember him? The other star witness Nadler brought in. Jordan asks Dean, asterisk, did you give advice to Lanny Davis, Cohen's lawyer? Asterisk, Dean says no. And Jordan, who always has the receipts, quotes Dean from a TV appearance saying he did talk to Davis and told him to hold Cohen's testimony back from Republicans as long as possible. When Jordan asks again, Dean finally admits it. Yes, they talked about it, and yes, he told him to hold the testimony. Jordan gets him to say it on camera, admitting he advised another witness's lawyer on how to handle the committee. You can't make this stuff up. Jordan's line, asterisk, they took your advice, asterisk, was just brutal. And all of this leads into Jordan's closing monologue, where he exposes the whole strategy behind Nadler's hearing. Jordan lays out the frustration a lot of people had. Nadler's first big witness was Michael Cohen, a man who went to prison for lying to Congress. His second big witness is John Dean, who pled guilty to obstruction back in the 70s. That's the lineup, a convicted liar and someone who admitted to obstruction. Jordan's point hits hard. While Nadler is spending hearings resurrecting witnesses from 45 years ago and coordinating with people who have credibility issues, they don't want to investigate how the entire Trump-Russia situation began. They don't want to look into the surveillance concerns Bill Barr talked about. They don't want to examine how the government was used to investigate a presidential campaign. Instead, Nadler brings in John Dean to talk about his feelings and his tweets. That's why Jim Jordan stands out in these hearings. He's not playing Nadler's game. He's in that room, staring down the chairman, calling the whole thing out for what it is, political theater. He asks the real questions. He cuts through the narrative. And he exposes exactly what's going on. That's my take. What did you think? Did Jordan nail him, or did I miss something? Drop your full reaction in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.